Do you remember where you were on Tuesday, September the 11th at 9:30? Yes? Yeah, most of us remember. Some of you were at work, some of you were in school, some of you were driving the car and heard about it on the radio, but you remember the moment you heard something had happened. I was a college student. I was in bed. I remember my mother calling and saying, "Turn on the TV," and hanging up. We all knew immediately, no matter where we were or what we were doing, that something was horribly, horribly wrong. Do you remember how you felt? The shock, the confusion, the anxiety. Maybe you had a pit in your stomach, you had labored breathing. How many of you felt afraid? Yeah. Fear is a powerful emotion, and on that day, there was a lot of fear. That evening, do you remember what you did? How many of you went to church? Some people remember going to church. I remember listening to a message not about retribution or revenge, but a call for peace, a call for prayer. But peace is hard to come by in our world. Now I want you to imagine that it is September the 12th. Your plane has landed, and you've spent the last 24 hours on it. And you find yourself getting off the plane. You are an African man. Your wife is with you. You find yourself getting on a bus, and the bus driver is wearing some weird military uniform. You don't speak the language. You don't read the language. You don't know how to navigate, and you don't understand what is happening. One of the interesting things about all those 38 planes is they were not told the same thing. Some shared what was happening. Some thought it was a mechanical issue. Some were told other stories. There was not a consistent pattern that happened. So there's great confusion as you then get off onto a bus. That bus takes you to a camp, and you find yourself entering it, and there are more people wearing military uniforms. And we thought we were afraid. Imagine being that man. How do you get off the bus? The bus driver's beckoning you to go, and you're sitting there with your wife, and the response is, "I'm not getting off this bus. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what's happening. Will I be returned from the military camp I'm going to?" And then the bus driver notices that your wife is clutching a Bible. And he takes it, and he gently opens it to Philippians 4:6, which says, "Be anxious for nothing." When I first heard that story, the immediate thing I thought was, but if they don't speak English and they don't read English, how did he know it was Philippians he was turning to? It could have been Proverbs. He could have read this: "Seldom set foot in your neighbor's house, too much of it, and they will hate you." Proverbs, Philippians, I'm just saying this could have ended a much different way. And the military uniforms, they were the Salvation Army. Maybe we learned something about how we dress in the world during disasters. But what we had in this moment was a Pentecost spirit, where two people from completely different corners of the globe are speaking the same language of safety and faith and peace. It's not that big chaotic moment. It is a scene of peace in the midst of the chaos. It is not hard to look at our world today and see that peace hasn't really taken hold over what is happening. We see collective moral injury continues to happen, both in war, both in our own country, internationally, domestically. Things are still in chaos and darkness. We look at our news feeds, and they are full of the gloating of humanity, drowning out the groaning of creation. We as a people often think that peace comes to us by some sort of political ceasefire, by some sort of process or treaty. But true peace really starts far, far before we get to the national global conflict. It starts right here. It starts with us. It starts in our own hearts. And the paradox of the Christian faith is that we find peace for ourselves by giving peace to others. Our scriptures today are from Peter and Paul. They are attributed to both of them. Now, Peter and Paul had a really rocky relationship because here you have Peter, who is the rock of the church. Jesus has said he's in charge, and Peter really believed he was in charge of everything and everyone. But then over here you have Paul, who is responsible for the growth of the church. Nobody started more churches than Paul, and all those churches, do they care about Peter? No, not at all. They care about Paul. So you'll find these two at a Jerusalem council where they have a fight about who is going to be in charge. These two who didn't like each other, didn't want to hang out with each other, then wrote these words. Paul writes to the Hebrews saying that we never know who we will meet until we share the table of grace with them. He writes to the church in Rome and he tells them, if someone's hungry, feed them. If your enemy is thirsty, give them something to drink. He writes to the church in Galatia, hospitality is not just for us inside the circle. Hospitality is for everyone outside the Christian community as well. 3 letters from Paul saying, here is how we are called to be. Here is how we extend hospitality. Here is how we then receive peace. The people of Gander embodied this selfless, radical act of hospitality. They didn't ask folks for their political affiliations. They didn't ask for them to define their religious dogmas. They didn't demand a cultural background check. Catholic school teachers welcomed Muslim world-class chefs into the same kitchen. Texas mothers bonded with English businessmen. They saw a human being in crisis, and they offered them community. In the musical, one of the profound moments comes when an American passenger enters a church, and he begins to sing the prayer of St. Francis, "Make me a channel of thy peace." He says, I haven't gone to church since I sung that, but I distinctly as a child remember that song, and it came back to him in that moment. And it's paired with a Jewish rabbi who is singing the Oseh Shalom, which is a Hebrew prayer of peace, which is then partnered with Muslims and people of various backgrounds offering their own prayers.
Make me a channel of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring your love. Where there is injury, your pardon, Lord. And where there's doubt, true faith in you. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there's despair in life, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, only light. Never say shalom bimroma. Uya say shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'emru amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Don't ask the grant that I may never there's despair in life, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, only light. And where there's sadness, ever joy.
The music highlights a profound truth, that we share a common humanity. And that when we are extending peace to someone who is different than us, we don't dilute our faith. We cover the fractures of our world. Paul writes about hospitality. For Paul, it's all about what you do. For Peter, it is about what you believe and how you act. And so in Peter's letter, he writes, just love deeply, because love covers a multitude of sins. If we believe that that is true, then we are called to act a certain way in the world. One of the things I love about Come From Away is it doesn't hide from the pain that happened that day. It doesn't sweep the darkness, the chaos, the conflict under the rug and pretends it didn't happen. But it shows us how a selfless faith can heal deep wounds. Because the Gander story is the gospel story, and it should be our story. When I look at our world, the divide that worries me the most is not about politics, it's not about theology. It is the divide between people who think the other side, however you want to define that, is still worth talking to, and those who think the time for dialogue has ended. We live in a world, in a society that tells us it is far too easy to retreat to our ideological bunkers, to unfollow or unfriend or disconnect from someone who thinks something differently than we do. Followers of Jesus Christ, plant ourselves firmly in the camp of hospitality, of dialogue, of relationships. We cannot claim the name Christian and think that there's people we don't want to dialogue with. We cannot follow Christ and not recognize that we must sit down and have a meal sharing beliefs that are differently with someone else. We cannot claim this as a place of grace and walk past the courtyard or walk past the building or drive down I-25 and have contempt for someone else. If we aren't providing hospitality, we aren't changing our hearts, and we aren't bringing peace into the world. Now, I want you to think back to the evening of September 11th, 2001. And I want you to remember how afraid you felt. It is okay to be afraid. At 9 o'clock, I had somebody say, I'm afraid for the world we are giving to my grandchildren. And I invited that person to let go of that fear. It's okay to be afraid, but fear cannot stop us from following Christ. We cannot let fear dictate our actions, our beliefs, and the way we are called to be in this world. So if you are having an anxious spirit, if your soul is afraid of all the chaos in the world, if the noisy, divided world has you wrapped up, I invite you into the practice of giving peace away, of giving peace to those in this room, of giving peace to those outside this room, of giving peace to everyone you meet in the world. For in so doing, you may just heal the fear that rests inside of you.